all. This is Suresh Matthew from the Quint. It's great to have you with me.
Hi, Suresh.
Hi, Suresh.
Hi.
Thank you.
Now, I have to start by telling you that I had a really harrowing time watching your films in Paava Kadhaigal. It wasn't easy watching any of the films, all of which are based around this society's fallacious belief of what honor is. Now, I want to start off by asking you, how did you zero in on the stories that you wanted to tell? All of you have played a part in the scripting, story, screenplay. So, how much of it was stories that you've heard or read in the newspapers, and how much of it was fiction? Sudha, if I could start with you.
So, Suresh, what happened was I had initially written something because they had given us the topic of honor killing. And I had written it for about 6 months. And then it was a love story. And I had given it to some of my friends in the film industry, to Dalit filmmakers, because it dealt with that part of the society. And they said it's a flawless screenplay, but it was extremely inadequate representation of the Dalit section. And I felt very icky doing that at that point of time. So I just threw it. And then I was looking for another story when a friend of mine sent me his short story, which has been published. And when I read it, I was so moved by it, I felt I had to say it. Because you see representation at some level about honor killings. You see at least 3 people talking about honor killings, but I don't think you see much in popular culture talking about the trans people. Right. So it attracted me. I wanted to know more about them. There was something in the story that pushed me to that quest, and that's how the story.
Okay, Vignesh.
So most of the films on this particular concept, this particular subject, have always been extension of whatever has happened, or a documentation of what has already happened, whatever we've read in papers, or what we've seen in news and stuff like that. So I wanted the dosage of fiction to be more. I wanted to create it in a way it doesn't look like as if it's just a chunk of something that has happened somewhere. So give it a new look, and then make it more watchable. Little entertainment quotient can also be there, so that I get across the message also. But meantime, it should also be an interesting watch. So that was my idea on taking this thing.
Gautham, what about you?
So I'm harrowing also means a very it's a negative term actually. So did you find it very? I know it's disturbing, but did you not like it to watch it, or?
No. It's not. It's definitely that something one would want to watch, but it was a difficult watch. It was almost like torturous to see some parts of it.
No, torturous.
And I think that's the impact that one wanted.
Okay, so I thought I'll answer the question based on getting to know whether harrowing was in a good way harrowing, or
it's in a good way harrowing.
Okay, so if you've seen my film, and obviously also I'm speaking for the others also, there is an element of this which is not reported at all. These cases mostly are not reported. The family handles it, and then how the family handles it. So I had read a couple of stories based on something like what happened in my film. And so I put myself in that zone, literally. I've also acted in the film. So I took it forward with Simran and myself and the cast to figure out how the family would react in a situation like this. I think if I had a mainstream hero playing the protagonist, he would have probably taken care of everything in the film. But then since it was me, and since I thought it should be the way it is in the film, I decided that the son would take care of a particular thing. The mother would take care of the daughter per se, individually. So it is all based on something that I'd read. And I also knew what films, my colleagues had made. So I didn't want to go down the exact route. So I sort of stayed away into the zone that, that you've seen in my film.
Okay. I just wanted to know, have you all seen each other's films?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Vignesh, if I could ask you, your film definitely, fuses humor with social commentary. As a filmmaker, do you find it easier to make, a serious subtextual comment using funny moments or humor rather than just making a very grim, serious film? Do you think that the audience is also likely to relate to it more?
See, can't say like that, but I prefer my films to be like that. I like to treat everything in a very lighter note. But this was a very sensitive topic, so I shouldn't make a make a joke out of it also.
Right.
So I had to balance it correctly. So that was,
it's a very slippery slope.
yeah, it's very delicate handling kind of thing. So that's what I mean. I didn't want to fuse in humor just for the sake of it. Where it shouldn't look forced. Also, if it can fall naturally in place, then maybe I first wanted to write it in the way I wanted it to be, and then once I pitched it to my ADs and once I started discussing about it, I felt even the response was also good. Then I got the confidence that okay, I can pull off something this serious in a lighter note also, but without compromising on the sensitiveness of the topic.
Now, Gautham, in your film, there's a very powerful moment when the father says that he feels ashamed to face his daughter after what has happened to her, that he almost feels naked. Is that something that you feel personally when you read or hear about these incidents of violence against girls and women as a man?
No, I get really angry, so to speak. But I put myself in that character to a large extent. And I think because they're a small town, which is not necessarily always, but because this particular family is from a small town and she believes in being clean and pure and all that stuff, in small, subtle ways, we've suggested that. I played it like that. So maybe not every man reacts like that. I tend to get generally very angry when I read and when I watch some stuff. It doesn't put me off, but I get really angry and I'm wondering why nobody's doing something about it and should we do something about it and all that. But I felt this particular person, this father of this girl, I thought he'd probably say something like this, So generally he's at home by 6 o'clock that particular day or during that week. Maybe he comes home a little later in the evening because he feels, that it's not right, and maybe he feels he didn't do enough to protect his child. So it's a take on what he feels about himself more than anything else, which is why he says, "I feel naked," when I stand in front of her.
Now, honor killings almost, if stripped down, it comes to this notion of purity. And it comes down to the, almost in every case, the woman and the woman's body being this, center of purity, which needs to be protected and should not be violated by another community or in any way, have a relationship with anybody else. As a woman, Sudha, how do you feel about these notions of purity attached to women and their bodies, and this whole patriarchal notion that we've all grown up seeing, hearing all around us?
Sickens me. It completely sickens me. I think it's a violation of the spirit as well as the body and the mind, and the social, the systemic suppression that comes out of it is really vile.
Right. And Gautham sir, again in your film, the mother Simran is shown as somebody who perhaps has a notion of honor that is skewed. She can't come to accept or come to terms with what has happened to her daughter in some way. And there is almost that sledgehammer kind of a twist where, we think that she's going to do something. But then you come down and, revisit that scene. I'm trying to give it without spoilers. Do you think if you had left the film where, the mother is on top of the hill and she does something there, it would have probably had a greater impact?
So strange, the question is, because that was the original story that I'd written, because there was an incident that I'd read about a mother doing that to a child, not in the way we filmed it, but pretty much, the end result is that. And I filmed it like the way you're saying it. I'm also trying to, veer away from the spoiler thing. So I filmed it exactly that way, but we kept discussing right through, Simran and myself, that this is not right. I also told her that there is an option, which I will show you on the edit table. And I'll go with this cut first, is what I said, And I looked at that cut extensively for about 3 to 4 weeks, In fact, it was even presented to Netflix as the first cut. But I had an issue with it. And I changed it back to what you've seen in the film. only because I didn't want to do that just for an impact sort of a sake,
Okay.
I had a conversation with a lot of people, including Madan Karki, who wrote the lyrics for the songs and all that.
Okay.
And we decided somewhere that just for an impact, let's not do something that we don't believe in. So
Right.
somewhere let's switch it back to what is out now. So
Yeah.
we had a problem with that. Yeah, and Simran also kept telling me, see if you cannot do that. Although she was sold and she came and she acted, very powerfully in whatever was presented, given to her and all that. But somewhere along the way, I decided it's not going to be, that.
I mean, I think on hindsight, it leaves at least a really positive impact, the current way it's being filmed. Now, VETRIMAARAN isn't here, but since you've all seen the film,
We can answer on his behalf. I know exactly how Vetri answers, isn't it, Vicky? Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to know your separate thoughts on one particular scene, which is a part of his film. There's that point where Sai Pallavi is doing yoga and Prakash Raj is waiting for her outside, and he gets up and he leaves. And he's almost out of the door when she sort of calls him back and he returns. Do you think that this was actually a moment of realization for the father that he should probably leave her alone and this is the world that she has chosen for herself and she has a right to? Vignesh, I want to start with you.
But I want to start with Gautham, sir.
No,
And he wants to start with Sudha, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know what Vetri would say to this, but to me, as a viewer, just only as a viewer, it felt that
it looked
way.
like that.
It
Because
felt
I
that
think
way.
obviously, right? I think
For a moment, there is that hesitation. I think you see that girl, you see Sai Pallavi in that. She's so innocent and so happy to see him, and she's doing yoga to bring another life into the world, and then he has to do what he intends to do, which is, I think he took a step back. I felt that.
I think I think always right through till the final act, there would always be that hesitation and should I go ahead with this? And then maybe some other forces work together in his head and with the society around, and some of the relatives saying something or the other would have actually made him take that call finally. But somewhere I felt there was that step back, like she mentioned, there was a hesitation right through, which is what I felt. Although we've never discussed this with Vetri, this particular point we've never discussed with Vetri.
Okay. Vignesh, I want to ask you also, because in your film also the father is initially he is fine. Then when the people around him start instigating him and saying that you have to lead by example and all that, that's when he gets pulled into doing what he does.
See, for any human being, whoever they give birth to, I mean, they are the biggest possession. The love is going to be so unconditional and unlimited that they can never take a call of even pricking them with a small needle. But for them to take such a call to take away their lives or taking decisions like that really needs so much of influence from external forces, and there needs the mindset itself is completely different. Even animals cannot do that. But when a human being tends to do something like that, then it requires something else completely, which they can never justify to anyone. So having moments like that at least show that there is some part of humanity still left in them while taking decisions like that. Even in my film, he may be he would have done the mistake once, but then even if he does the mistake again, then there is no point of we being calling ourselves a human being. So that small element of humanness should be felt. Maybe that would have been the thought process for that particular scene which you mentioned in Vetri Sir's film.
Now, in each of your films, as I've said, that there are points where it becomes almost difficult to watch. There are sequences, there are scenes. Is that the kind of impact that you were looking at, where a viewer is almost uncomfortable because that's the truth which is happening around us? When we read it in a newspaper, we may not find it as harrowing. It's just a piece of news. You read it, you skip over to the next one. But when you actually see it being enacted in front of you, you have to feel that discomfort which should creep in and feel that this is what is happening in your society. Is that the kind of impact that you were looking at when you were making these films or even writing those scenes?
I think to a large extent, I'm not looking to make an impact per se. I'm not I just feel if this is the content that I've already put down on paper and it's in my head, then I need to film that content the way it needs to be filmed. So it has to strike me first. So that's how I clearly work on every film of mine. And it's not necessarily to leave a particular impact, with the audience. Yes, like I said, and you started off by saying it was harrowing. I've said that this is disturbing viewing to a certain extent. But does it put you off? No. I think it's viewing that you want to sit back and watch and get immersed in, and you talk about it and you take it forward. I showed the film to people at home and all that. And my mother, who's 75 and who's a teacher and who's very forward and broad-minded and all that, she loved it. It was disturbing to her, but from Vetri's film to Sudha's film to Vicky's film, I know she laughed a bit in Vicky's film, in Vignesh's film, and I think that was that's his style, right? Toning down a sort of a stark moment, sort of a thing, in which I really liked that he did that. Mine was a very straight representation of what is happening and what the family is like. So it's only what the content deserves, and not necessarily to take it beyond that to sort of impact the audience in that way.
Okay. What about you, Sudha? The scene where Sattar is knocking on doors and asking people to save him?
I would be lying if I said that, I didn't know what kind of an impact that it would have on people, because it was heartbreaking and heart-wrenching when I was writing it, and it's not there in the short story. So I want to jolt people out of that little bit of comfort where these things are happening. And like you said, when it's in a magazine or a newspaper, you take it and you chuck it. But then in the popular culture, you are talking about mainstream cinema and you're putting this out on Netflix. I think the impact is so much more. So I'm striving to push it to the edge, to the boundaries. And I did it. But it was true and it was honest. It wasn't just for the impact, because all of these stories are very impactful in the nature. You don't really have to try to make them pre-visceral at that level. So I think it's there. The impact is there, and I just pushed for it.
Okay. You want to add last comments, Vignesh?
See, the sad part is all these things have happened in real, okay? And it has been more brutal, more unbelievable than whatever we've shown in our films. We've toned it down, but the reality is even more drastic and more... I want to steal some word for this from Gautham sir.
Stark, brutal.
Stark, brutal. So it's like, if you can't imagine what is happening in reality. So whatever comes in our film is actually, it's little toned down only.
Yeah.
We've not shown the exact real part yet. And we can't even show that. So.
Yes, I think which is what I meant to, right? We've consciously somewhere, towed a line. We've been on a line. We've not really... Even Vetri's film, you know what Vetri's film is, right? But somewhere I think he's not indulged too much in it. It's one very restrained indulgence that, he's also done. Somewhere we've been responsible, I think.
So I had a particular scene where I show what happens to Sattar. So I actually filmed it, and my first edit had it. And then my last edit, I took it off because I couldn't stand it. The point is made in the subtlety. The point is made. So there was no point showing more brutality, I felt. These are brutal stories, actually.
That's a filmmaker's call, because actually, Sudha's film, you want to know what happened to Sattar.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to know what happened to Sattar, and it's told also in like a narrative form there.
Yeah.
But if she's toned it down, then she's just being responsible a lot more, I guess.
Thank you so much for talking to us, and all the best for your respective films.
Thank you, Suresh.
Thank you.
Thank you.